Hello, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Stay in the Game. I'm Becca Main. I'm the Director of Coach Education and Member Services for the National Field Hockey Coaches Association. We're excited to have you join us to talk about coaching, umpiring, and playing and staying in the game in field hockey. As we move forward, I'll be moderating, but first I want to introduce our Executive Director of the National Field Hockey Coaches Association, Kate Clark.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so pleased that you joined us. We're going to be diving into your passion, our passion, what brings us together, and some natural transitions from your competitive playing days to how you can continue being a part of the vibrant field hockey community through whether it's coaching at the high school, club, or college level, umpiring at the high school, club, youth, college level, or continuing to play, or all of the above. There's a myriad of pathways. And so we've assembled a vibrant panel that will be introduced here in a minute to share their journeys, to share how they kind of got into coaching. I don't think anyone grows up saying, I want to be a coach or I want to be an umpire. It just happens as a kind of a natural transition when we don't want to part ways with something that we're so passionate about. So I'm excited to have you all here and to talk about these opportunities and to hear from our panel. Also wanted to share with you just kind of some opportunities. Becca, if you want to share some slides, we'll talk about, how many opportunities exist within the coaching and umpiring space. And so with that, I will say that the National Field Hockey Coaches Association, which is our organization, and USA Field Hockey have come together in an alliance, and we continue to identify ways that we can bring in more coaches, umpires into this wonderful game so that we can create future generations that will thrive. And so you'll hear from Sean Rappaport, who will be introduced. He oversees umpiring for USA Field Hockey. We'll talk about some of their coach education later in this webinar, as well as learn more about the National Field Hockey Coaches Association and how we support coaches through their efforts. And so looking at opportunities, Becca, if you want to go to the next slide, in terms of colleges and the landscape, there's 285 colleges that currently sponsor NCAA field hockey across all three divisions. So there's a plethora of opportunities. There's over 1,800 high schools across the US in 24 states, and there's over 300 clubs. So as you can see, there's an abundance of opportunities at all levels of the game to stay involved. And so with that, one thing that I always like to mention is coaching is a profession. Umpiring can be a profession as well, but to focus on coaching first, it's always helpful to have kind of an idea, especially if you're going and are interested in the college route, what the compensation can be. Can you make a lifestyle out of coaching? And the answer is yes. If you want to coach at the college level and that is your desire, certainly we do salary surveys. And I think it's always helpful as you're exploring different career options after college, what can I make or earn as a coach? And so the national average, which we survey coaches every year, you can kind of see the average full-time assistant coach, which is where most folks start, for each division. So just over 57,000 for Division 1, 25,000 for Division 2, and just under 37,000 for Division 3. And those are assistant coach ranges. Whereas head coach, again, this is combined for all divisions, just over 79,000. Now the range can go much higher. It can also go much lower. It just depends. But I think it's important to share that information as we look at coaching is truly a profession that you can continue. And I think the myth has to be busted that you can still have a family, as we have many thousands of coaches who have families and still are able to manage coaching and having a family. So with that, I wanted to just turn it back over as we explore kind of the next chapter, hopefully in your field hockey pursuit. Back to you, Becca.
Thank you so much, Kate. As we go through the webinar, please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. They will be asked at the end if we have questions, and they will be done so anonymously. So we're going to start with the coaching piece of field hockey, and some of our panelists are going to first share their personal coaching journey. So first I have Carolyn, who is our NFHCA president, introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her personal coaching journey.
Thanks, Becca. My name's Carolyn King Robitaille. I'm currently the head field hockey coach at St. Anselm College, a Division II institution in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm also the current president of the NFHCA. I got into coaching kind of like Kate said. I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that I loved that part of kind of life. I always wanted to be a teacher. I went to Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, Division III. I played field hockey and softball while I was there. I was recruited to play basketball there, not field hockey and softball. But by the time I graduated high school, I was pretty burnt out from basketball and the competitive AAU environment. Sent an email to the field hockey coach. She let me walk on the team, and the rest is kind of history with field hockey. I played 3 sports in high school. Got to Bates and really just kind of loved the environment on the field hockey team and just kind of fell in love with the sport. I picked it up as a freshman in high school to impress the basketball coach at my high school, who coached both sports, just to get on her radar. And so it was not a sport that I knew anything about. I was an English major. I graduated and got the dream job in corporate communications at Reebok at the headquarters. Was there for about 2 months and realized I cannot sit behind this desk. I have to get out of here. Emailed my coach, went back up to Bates and coached field hockey and softball, and was the assistant sports information director for 3 years up there. And as soon as I went back and got into it on the coaching side, I just knew like this was it, and was going to find a way to make it work. I did 3 years there and then was a graduate assistant at SUNY Cortland, which is a Division III school in Cortland, New York. Got my master's in English because I still wasn't sure I could make a career out of this and thought I could be a teacher still. But the coaching bug had bit, and so I made it work. And I got the job here at St. A's, first head coaching job at 27. Their coach had resigned July 30th, and so they were desperate, thankfully. Got my name from somewhere, got the job here, and it's been 12 and a half years since. I've just loved every minute of this. I'm a mom of 2 very young kids, 3.5 and 2 years old. And, you know, as Kate and Becca pointed out, you can do it. And it's such an incredible, wonderful community. It just gives you can make a great balance out of it. And I can't imagine doing anything else. So I'm fortunate and lucky that all the things fell the way they did for me. And I plan on doing this for a very long time.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Let's hear a story now from Janelle. If you could introduce yourself and give us a little idea of your personal coaching journey.
Hi, everybody. My name is Janelle Benner. I'm the head coach at Ursinus College, which is located in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. It's a Division III institution. And I'm also the Division III rep for the NFHCA. I started out, I have played hockey as long as I can remember, and was really fortunate to be able to play at Old Dominion University, where we were really competitive and won 3 conference championships. We went to the NCAA tournament each year, went to 2 Final Fours. So I just had an amazing playing career, had such an awesome experience at the collegiate level. I majored in music education when I was in college, so I thought I was going to be a teacher as well. I went straight out of college and did start coaching at the high school level, and I also led the high school orchestra at the same school. And that was amazing, but also it was a lot trying to manage a full field hockey program at the high school level and all of the elements that have to go into raising up that program. And then also with the orchestra program and thinking about grassroots of how to do really well in both of those areas. I was having a lot of fun coaching and also teaching, but when I learned of an opportunity to coach at the collegiate level and be able to just focus on one thing and coach full time, I was excited about that and jumped on that. So I went straight from being a head coach at the high school level to being a head coach at the collegiate level at Ursinus, and I've been there for coming up on 14 years now at Ursinus. One of the things that was mentioned before is I didn't think that I was going to go into coaching for a full-time career. That was not really on my radar until I got into coaching at the high school level and was really made aware of the opportunity to coach collegiately. And I love it. It's just such an amazing experience to be able to go to work and be outside for most of my day and work with really inspiring student athletes. And I still also get to play a ton too. So I wanted to share that I also, and I know we're going to talk about this later in the webinar also, but being able to play with the U.S. Masters team and still stay fresh in the sport is also amazing to be able to balance that and the coaching experience. One of the things that I never thought about in the whole coaching arena that's a huge perk, at least for me here at Ursinus, is how much I get to travel the world and experience different countries, because we're either traveling there with my Ursinus team or I'm traveling to play internationally with the U.S. Masters team. So just a huge perk of the job is to be able to explore the world and get to play hockey and coach hockey all over the place. So it's been really fun. I also balance a family. I have 3 young boys at home, and it's been really rewarding for them to see their working mom and being able to kind of just share with them what goes into loving your job and having a passion for what you do. So been really fortunate to just be in this spot where I am.
Thanks so much, Janelle. Georgia, if you could give us a little bit of insight into your coaching journey next.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Georgia Holland. I am currently the associate head field hockey coach at Northwestern University, so Division I. I also am the newly appointed D1 rep for the NFHCA. I grew up on Long Island playing a bunch of sports, but really focused in on field hockey by the end, and was lucky enough to play at Ward Melville High School for the late, great Nancy Cole. She was the one who encouraged me to get involved in the Futures program, what is now the Nexus program for USA Field Hockey. And it was through those pipelines that I was able to be recruited to play in college. I didn't play club field hockey, wasn't as big back then, but the USA program really was what led me eventually to being recruited and attending Yale. I went to Yale University. I played for Pam Stuper and Tamara Durante for 4 years. Had an amazing 4 years there. I was a pre-med student. Don't really know why. We'll get to that, I guess. And I had 1 year, unfortunately, where I had a knee injury, which gave me a year of eligibility back. And with that year, I did a grad transfer and I played for 1 year at Wake Forest University. I did kind of the COVID year thing before that was even a thing. And I was really lucky to get to play for Jen Averill at Wake. And it was there that I really started to think about possibly becoming a coach myself and skipping the pre-med route. I got to play at Wake for a year, but the master's program I was in was a 2-year program, which allowed me to stay on campus for another year, and was asked by Jen to kind of stay on as a volunteer grad assistant. And it was in that second year where I started to realize I didn't want to go to med school. I really was loving the lifestyle and experience that I was having as part of a staff at Wake Forest. And Jen was the one who gave me enough confidence to finally admit to myself that I wanted to forego medical school and give coaching a try. And I think the decision there was, if I go to medical school, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to have paid enough money and I'm going to be in the depths of it and see it through. But coaching, I could try it out for a couple years, and if I didn't love it, I could always go back. Obviously, that is not what happened. I've stuck with it ever since. From Wake, I was hired to Michigan State as an assistant coach. And once again, we kind of tie back to the people you meet in field hockey and the connections you make kind of helping you out. My assistant coach at Yale, Tamara Durante, had since left Yale and gone to Michigan State, and she was the one who helped me get my foot in the door there. Spent 2 years there, and then Tracy Fuchs at Northwestern, who had recruited me as a high schooler, who also grew up on Long Island, who also played for my high school coach, Nancy Cole, reached out and asked me to apply to be the associate head coach at Northwestern. So I think all of that ties back to a big theme of me having really amazing coaching mentors through my life, and really lucky to have been influenced by and coached by such amazing, strong women such as Jen, Pam, Tamara, Tracy. And it was really them who kind of led the way for me and have been able to help me in my career. So yeah, I think me now as a coach, I'm trying to do the same thing, trying to inspire young adults and be that role model like my coaches were for me. And I think the most rewarding thing today or these days is seeing past players of mine now deciding to get back into the coaching world themselves. That's kind of the full circle piece for me, and keeps me going every day.
Thanks, Georgia. Andrew, can you give us our insight into your personal coaching journey?
Of course. The interesting thing listening to those is the similarities, and none of us thought we were going to be coaches full time, and I'm exactly the same. I started playing in England when I was younger. Then I played for Canada for a long time, and there's not really the number of opportunities to be a head coach or to make a living in coaching. And so I also did an English degree. And I did a journalism master's, and I was lucky to play for the Canadian team and traveled a lot. And so, and I coached, but I was coaching volunteer for my club and helping people out. And so enjoyed it, but never really thought it was something that I could do. And then after the Olympics and I retired, I went and had the chance to go and coach Maryland as an assistant as a volunteer assistant. For a season, and then I got offered a full-time job there, and I thought, okay, same sort of thing that as I think you mentioned, Georgia, that you could either go into a career that you knew you'd have to commit to, or you go and try something out. And I tried it out, and turned out I loved it, and I've ended up here. I'm sorry, I should say I'm the head coach at Old Dominion University. I didn't say that. But I've coached at Maryland, Boston College, Lafayette College, and now ODU. And I've been lucky to coach with the U.S. programs, the under-21 national team, and the senior national team. So it's been great. And I wouldn't trade it now, but I would never in a million years have thought I was going to be a coach for 25 years full-time.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Now we're going to turn a little bit into what does a coach do in the office and what skills are required, which is what everyone wants to know. So Carolyn and Georgia, I'm going to have you handle this question and talk a little bit about what coaches do in the office.
All right, Georgia, I'll go first.
Go for it.
So I think at different levels, right, there's different things, right? I can talk about my experience here at D2, and then I had previous experience at D3. I think from a head coaching perspective, right, you kind of have the 30,000 foot view of your program, right? You're kind of the gatekeeper of all the major things. I have a lot of conversations on a weekly basis with our administration, our athletic director, our sports supervisor, communicating all things about our program, right? Our scholarship, our recruiting class, our budget for next year, advocating for our program, making sure they understand what we need, what we're looking for, and just having really open dialogue with the people, the decision makers at the college. A huge component is fundraising, making sure our program is in a good position from a fundraising component. We have a really quality budget, but fundraising is really critical, especially kind of post-COVID, as people are making sure that their programs are kind of safe and stable. I would say on the regular, right, daily conversations, really working closely with our staff, our assistant coach. We're in constant communication. I share an office with my assistant coach. So kind of laying out our week, dividing and delegating all the things we have to do. When my door is open, it's a constant flow of players, right? They walk by my building and they look across and they can see the door open, and thankfully, right, they pop in. So I might have a schedule and then it gets completely derailed because I think most of us, we're player-centered coaches, right? So when the players pop in and they want to talk and they need things, then we're there for them. And that happens on a daily basis. And that's really something that's important for head coaches and assistant coaches to be involved in. Academically, making sure that the students are, on making the progress they're supposed to be making, helping them in any way that they need to make sure that they feel comfortable and successful. I'm also an assistant athletic director for academic success. So I have a lot of secondary duties where I help all the student athletes with advising, especially post-COVID with that 5th year. It takes up a big chunk of my time outside of field hockey. And I think that can be fairly common at the Division II and Division III level to be involved in a lot of your campus climate. I love that about Division II. I love that I'm on committees that are all over campus. I know so many people at the college in different positions because at a very small school, right? You're a stakeholder and you're kind of part of decision making on all the fronts. So I think a lot of that stuff takes up our time. And then of course, recruiting, film, in season, scouting, practice planning, all that really fun stuff. X's and O's can take up all of our day. If I wish it could take up all of the day, all the time, talking with our assistants and players. But what I love about it is every day is different. Like I said, you might have a schedule. You come in, you think you know what you're going to do today, and your day could totally go down a different path. And that's one of the greatest things about it for me, is just that versatility and flexibility and kind of not really knowing exactly what this day is going to bring, and just being around people and connecting with people all the time. So, Georgia.
Awesome. I can definitely give more of the insight into the assistant coach world. I would kind of follow up with Carolyn's point about you never know what the day is going to look like. I think another really cool thing about being a coach full time is that there's a real kind of cyclical nature to the year, and that changes what your day-to-day looks like, depending on really the month. So what I'm doing in the office now in April is like very different than what my day looks like in the middle of October. So as an assistant, I would say I definitely spend a lot less time on the admin side of things. Not much going on there, but I think that lets us dive into kind of the X's and O's like Carolyn was referring to. I do a ton of film analysis and kind of on-field practice planning. So for example, this past weekend, we played a spring game at the University of Iowa. Today, basically my day involves breaking down that film for debrief with our team. So I'm pulling a bunch of individual clips to sit down and have meetings with players, talk about some of the things we were hoping to focus on this weekend and how those went, as well as pulling a number of clips that we'll share to the whole group today before practice, really kind of analyzing how we did in our 3 main focus points this past weekend. And then in the fall, I do a ton of film analysis of upcoming opponents. So trying to break down who we're playing and how they play, what their tendencies are, how they run attack and defense corners, and help kind of build those film clips into a full scouting report. Another big piece of what I do in the office is practice planning. So at least 2 hours of our day is usually spent out on the field. So making sure the things that I'm assigned to do are well prepared and thought out. I am very much like a need to be prepared type of person. So I spend a good 30 minutes making sure all my drills are planned properly and the teams are set, so that things flow really nicely once we get out on the field. Third, I would say we do a lot of player meetings. We really try to give every single one of our athletes a development plan with a couple goals that are really achievable, hopefully in like the 3-month segment that we're in. So checking in on those at least once a month and making sure we're on the same page with our athletes. They feel like they're moving in the right direction, but also importantly, just checking in on their overall health, their mental health, how they're doing in school, and making sure we're having plenty of touch points with them. And then the last thing I'll add as an assistant is you do have a decent amount of kind of logistical work to do in the office. So helping to coordinate team travel and equipment orders, preparing for summer camp and registration for that. That list could go on and on and on. Just coordinating travel for a party of 30 people could probably be, or is for some programs, a full-time job as a director of operations. But there is a good chunk of that. So being able to manage a long to-do list and stay on top of all the things that you have to juggle is really important as well.
Thanks, Georgia. Appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit now what a coach does on the field, and this includes recruiting. So I'll have Janelle start, and Janelle and Andrew, you can handle this piece.
Okay, so Janelle and I spoke prior and agreed that I would kick it off, but we had some similarities and some differences in the way that we do things, and obviously it would change based on what level of program that you're at. But for me, one of the biggest themes that came across when I looked at what do we do on the field and recruiting is regarding communication with people, all different kinds of people. It was Georgia just mentioned communicating with other people in the athletic department, and so did Carolyn, and that's obviously part of it. Communicating with your other coaches, whether it's your assistants or your head coach. Communicating with your players is essential, and really listening to them and learning, what they need, and trying to offer them what they need, and then communicating with everyone else in as you're recruiting, communicating with young players who you're interested in, or finding out if you're interested in with them, and then their families as well. So, and it's, having been in coaching for a long time, there's been an evolution. Obviously, talk differently now with the young generation, the players we coach, and we have to learn to do this than we did 15, 20 years ago. When I started coaching, it was a different world. And so now, for example, we're communicating electronically more than on text and Teamworks and WhatsApp, more than we would by email. But the communication part is probably the biggest theme that runs through all of the things that we do, both on the field and in recruiting. So I'll let Janelle take it on from here, because I know she had a lot of good thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest element that I have found on the field is, as Andrew's saying, the communication piece with your athletes. It's really important in the whole planning process and how to execute your plan on the field by being your true, authentic self. So when Andrew and I were talking, we talked about how different that is for him and I, for example, with what our practice planning looks like and how we play that out. We're both ready for practice, but my plan looks different than his plan, and that's okay, and it's okay to do your job in your own authentic way, because if you're not being true to yourself as a coach, your players will see right through that, and they're not going to be as trusting in what you're trying to deliver if they can tell that it's not you. So I think that's a big part. I think in the planning process, and then also, of course, as you execute on the field as a coach, teaching players, these are two things that I've learned in my 13 years now at Ursinus. It's really important to teach players how to problem solve, and also how to think really strategically about the game and be able to solve those problems on their own. So a lot of my job, even though I know all of the answers, is trying to teach them how to pull that out themselves. And so that's how I structure my practice planning. And then on the field, it's a lot of question and answer, posing things to them. So they have to problem solve and figure out, how would I come up with a solution in this scenario? And how am I going to lead the team on the field to make those decisions for game day? So that's a big part of how I prepare for my on-field sessions is how am I going to teach them how to problem solve and not just give them all the answers. The other thing that I found on the field is teaching leadership. And I think that that's a really big part of my job too, is helping them be good leaders and good human beings and how to work together with each other. So that's another big part of kind of our program and how I approach the on-field elements. You have to know your why. I think even in coaching, with having a passion for coaching itself, you have to know why you coach. And I think it's important that your players know why they play. And that can really help if you have established core values or established team standards, that can really help you all get on the same page and be really successful. The only other piece that I'll share as far as like things to consider with on the field is just staying current in the game. And I know Kate probably has some information to share later with so many different things that the NFHCA or at USA Field Hockey have available for us as coaches to stay current, to keep learning, to keep going to clinics or getting certifications, to just keep learning and keep staying young in the sport. And that's a big goal of mine as I play, but also, of course, in the coaching world, is to not get stuck in my own ways and not just do things because that's how I've done it in the past, and to stay really current by continuing to learn and to continuing my growth for the game as well.
Thanks so much. Now that's actually a perfect segue. I'm gonna turn it back to Kate Clark, who's going to talk a little bit about resources both with the NFHCA and USA Field Hockey.
Thanks, Becca. So to kind of build on what the coaches have already shared, everybody has their own journey and everybody certainly has their own coaching philosophy and, a little bit different ways of doing things that are personal to themselves and authentic to themselves. USA Field Hockey and the National Field Hockey Coaches Association have a plethora of resources to support coaching education. I want to start with the National Field Hockey Coaches Association, which many of you are probably familiar with through our awards and recognition programs. And so we host the All-American, All-Region, the senior team, the All-Academic awards. There's a plethora of those. And so you're probably most familiar with us through your playing days, the NFHCA sponsoring those awards. So that is certainly something we do, is we celebrate the game, we celebrate achievements, both on and off the field. That is kind of a core function of who we are and what we do, but we also do a lot of other things. And so we are kind of a key professional development association for coaches. And so we have both virtual programming as well as on the field programming for our member coaches at all levels of the game. So we have club members, high school members, we've got college coach members at all levels. And so we invite all field hockey coaches into our community to learn, to grow, to develop, and also to learn from their peers. I think that the best place to learn is from one another. And so we have an annual convention every year that we host, where we have nearly 400 coach members come together to learn, to share, to celebrate achievements, to share best practices. We also want to know what USA Field Hockey is up to at the national level, so coaches stay informed on how to best prepare their athletes to compete competitively the USA way. And so with that, you'll see a host of kind of programs that we offer through the NFHCA, one of which is our Campfire Mentoring Program, which I think is very valuable, especially for newer coaches. We have over 80 participants this year, but it's a group virtual mentoring program. And so there's small groups of 3 to 5. It's a really great way to learn not only tactical, technical aspects of the game, but also off the field culture building, as well as how to develop your own philosophy and to kind of develop your own leadership skills. And so there's a host of things that we do and will continue to do to support the growth and professional development of coaches. And then USA Field Hockey has an outstanding program at different levels. So they have level 1, 2, and 3 coach certifications. You obviously kind of stair step into those. And so there starts with online foundational courses, goes into in-person clinics that they're offered throughout the country at different regional locations. And then they have different courses, clinics, workshops throughout the year, both for umpires as well as coaches. And I'll let Sean talk about that in a minute as far as the umpire side. But between our two organizations, we really do support the growth, professional development of our coaching community, while also continuing to celebrate all of their achievements. So back to you, Becca.
Thanks so much, Kate, and thank you to all the coaches who just shared insights. And we're going to spin now towards the umpiring world, another way to stay in the game and another place that we really are looking for people to grow and develop. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean Rappaport. And I'll bring up our agenda, who is the USA Field Hockey Director of Umpiring and also an international official. So Sean, I'll turn it on over to you.
Thanks so much. So listening to the journeys of the coaches, it remind me of my own journey, and mine's quite different. And I played, coached, excuse me, and have now umpired as well. And I think it gives a different perspective having done each of them. And I don't think people have to necessarily pick one or the other until you're at a certain level where the time commitments involved dictate that you have to do just one. But trying your hand at any of those is certainly encouraged. On the umpiring side, which is where I'm currently most involved, having hung up my goalkeeping kit about 5 years ago, is where I look to add as much value as possible, and where we really want to encourage people to get involved. You'll hear from the likes of Andrew and Shannon and Gus and their different journeys, and you can see how you can get involved in umpiring from so many different places. I think what we really want to do is make the umpiring community a safe place, a place where people are encouraged to get involved and perform and stay in the game. And you know, umpiring is not for everybody. I'm not going to suggest that it is. At the same time, it's certainly a critical part of the game, and it's an area that if we don't have a strong group of umpires, I think the game suffers, and that's why it's so important for us to identify and encourage people who want to pick up the whistle. It can be as simple as getting involved in a scrimmage when you're still at college, doing some college games, or coming to a USA Field Hockey Showcase event. We've had a number of current college players umpiring at our events over the last number of months, and they improve and develop not just as umpires, but as players and people as well. And it's certainly made a difference to those players that have been involved in our programs. We saw the many opportunities available for coaches. And if you think about the amount of field hockey that's being played in the country, along with that come 2 umpires on the field for every game that needs to be played, which means a lot of opportunities for umpires too. People spoke about burnout. Sometimes a 4-year college program, you can feel a bit burnt out. Hopefully umpiring can give some people the ability to stay involved in the game once they finish playing, if they don't want to continue playing. Similarly, if they don't want to get into coaching, at the same time, you can continue playing. They're great club and masters programs, and you can do that while at the same time being involved in umpiring too. And the same goes for coaching. It doesn't mean that you have to give up or not be involved in umpiring. So there are many paths to getting involved in the sport through umpiring. We are just wrapping up an online clinic through USA Field Hockey, which we offer at the moment twice a year. We're trying to make that a more regular occurrence. And then at all our events, we have a number of umpire managers that are there to assist and encourage people on their umpiring journeys. Similarly, at local levels, there are various umpire associations which are actively involved in identifying umpiring talent and helping people progress on their umpiring journey. So there are many ways to get involved in the umpiring community. It's really good fun. And it's a way of giving back to the game, serving the game, and also still enjoying the game in a different way. So I would certainly encourage everybody to get involved in umpiring to whatever extent they feel comfortable.
Thanks, Sean. Now we'll get the personal umpiring journeys first from Shannon, and then Gus, and then Andrew.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm in the car traveling home. I actually have a very interesting journey on how I got to be an umpire. I played Division I college at Richmond and Syracuse. I also played on the U.S. national team for 5 years. I was part of the 2012 Olympic team. After the Olympics, we actually had some time off, so I actually entered the coaching world. I got the opportunity to coach at UMass Amherst with Carla for a couple years. When we moved back over to Pennsylvania, when we were training in Lancaster, I retired in 2014 from playing, and then I ended up coaching over at St. Joe's in Philly. While I was coaching at St. Joe's, I still wanted to be a part of the USA program, so I was able to coach U21 team. I got involved on the men's side of the game, and I was the manager for the men's team, and then eventually became the assistant coach with Rutger for a couple of years. I dabbled in some broadcasting during the Pan Am Cup when that was held at the Nook, so that was a cool experience for me too. While I was in Philly, I actually met my wife, who is from New England and refused to move south. So I trucked my way up to New England. I left the college coaching and entered into the club coaching. I still wanted to be around the game, figure out how to stay in the game. And that's when I kind of discovered umpiring as well. So Sean speaks to being able to do both. I have had the luxury and the ability to do both. I started out with umpiring, like it was Futures, now it's Nexus, junior high performance, women's high performances. I started to recently dabble in a little bit of indoor, but that's a little bit harder for me because I tend not to understand a lot of the different things that happen from a player perspective. But I now am an umpire for Division 1, 2, and 3. I truly wanted the challenge of understanding the umpire side of the game. Once I crossed over to the dark side, as they used to say, I had to apologize quite a bit to my fellow umpires because I was the player that gave them a hard time on the fields. And now I completely understand where they're coming from. But I truly enjoy learning about the game, still being a part of it. The rules have changed drastically since I was a player in high school to college. The national team they've developed over time. So it is a constant challenge. But I do enjoy having the opportunity to umpire these college games and still be able to coach at the club level. So I 1000% agree with Sean. You have the ability to do multiple roles and still stay a part of the game and find different avenues to be able to help it grow. So that's my small journey in a short amount of time.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Okay, Gus, let's hear your journey to umpiring.
All right. I actually grew up a baseball player. I had every intention of going on to play in college and all of that. And I grew up in a small town that's a suburb of Columbus. It's a landlocked 2.2 square miles that has more pizza places than any other type of restaurant. And it's not known for field hockey. Columbus has never really been known for field hockey. And so I think it was the 86 Pan Am games that were played in Indianapolis. I actually called Ohio High School and said, I want to play field hockey. And they're like, why do you want to play a women's sport? And those that happen to know me that are on this call can only imagine the 35-minute back and forth call that it became as to it's not a women's sport because there's the obvious scores from the Pan Am games on the men's side in USA Today. So I went off to Ohio University, tried out for the baseball team. Bad timing for me and my baseball career, but my mom's old coach, and I come from a family where my mom was a high school coach. She played in university pre-Title IX. My 3 sisters all played Division I field hockey. One still coaches at the Division III level. So I grew up around the game, and if I wanted to be relevant in family discussions at the dinner table, I had to know field hockey. So my mom's old coach was still a professor in the health and recreation and sport college at Ohio U. She was like, why don't you umpire? And I said, I make fun of umpires. And it didn't matter whether it was field hockey, basketball, baseball. If they weren't hustling, I was kind of giving some feedback. And Dr. Brown says, well, you can make some money. And as a poor college student, I said, well, tell me more. And she told me what they were making at the high school level for a varsity and JV game. I said, that's interesting because that means I don't have to eat in the dorms on the nights that I umpire, kind of thing. So I looked at it from the financial aspect of it. And then I started to enjoy going out and seeing different high schools and learning about more of the region that I was in. And so it became this avocation that allowed me some flexibility to get off of campus for a little bit, a couple times a week during the fall. Luckily, I got seen by Pat Hayes, Barb Carrero, who are legends of the game on the umpiring side. And they said, well, you need to start doing men's hockey. And I'm like, well, what's men's, what's that entail? And so next thing I know, there's a club tournament that used to be held on the mall in Washington, D.C. And it brought in teams from Canada, England, other places around the world. And my first experience with men's hockey was fun. I'm scared out of my mind. But I loved the learning experience because the skills that I was using on the field were the same things that I was using in the office. They became the skills that I was using in the boardroom. And so going back to where I came from, as I got involved with men's hockey, I never thought I needed a passport. And then as luck would have it, I'm going up to Canada for games. I'm going throughout the Pan Am region. I was touring over with the under 16 team that went to Valkenswaard. We used to tour with the US junior teams. And so having these experiences has actually helped me grow into be a better communicator, a much different person, much more interesting person, had I relied on where I came from. And as others will talk about, the fraternity that is umpiring, you meet some great people, and it becomes at these showcase events, whether it's Nexus, whether it's Festival or the other events that go on, you're going to find that it's almost like a reunion every time you get together. And so you start looking forward to those catch-up opportunities and giving back to the game and allowing others that, have the opportunity to play now, giving them, the same experience that you may have had growing up. So it's been an incredible journey. And I will say that the people that you meet are one of the true values that you get out of giving back to the game by umpiring.
Thanks so much, Gus. Okay, Andrew is a little different story. I know you're a newer umpire. So Andrew, can you kind of fill us in a little bit on that journey?
Yeah, I'm a young umpire, but I agree with Sean that you don't have to choose one or the other. You can do a lot of different roles. I can't play anymore because I can't run around. But I actually started umpiring because we'd blown our budget at ODU and we didn't have any more recruiting budget, and I wanted to go to a recruiting event, and I realized that I could get a lot of the expenses paid for and meals paid for by umpiring. So this was a couple of years ago. I did a shooting star event, and I thought, oh, this is really good. And then I actually started going, oh, I can watch these players on the field, and I'm much more aware of what's going on, and also started seeing, this is quite difficult at times, and I've made some mistakes, which is always the best way to learn. But then as I've done more of it the last couple of years, I've really enjoyed it, and at different levels. And so I really encourage our players now to try and do it as well, because it lets you see things from a different perspective than you had it before. So that's a pretty simple journey towards it for me, but it's been a great one. I've really enjoyed it to add to playing and coaching.
Thank you, Andrew. Now let's just get in a little bit to developing your umpire skill set. How does an umpire get into the profession? So Shannon and Andrew, I know this was your piece to take, so I'll let you all take it away.
Okay, so I think it'll be interesting because both of us have started umpiring at different times, and how we probably got started. So how I got started was coming from the player aspect. So when I was a player, we had, I was coached by Lee and Terry offered the umpire part of the game as players as well, so we could learn how to maneuver the umpires. So from there, I always had an interest, so becoming being a USA Field Hockey member and all the courses that are offered online, which gave me the opportunity to kind of get into that futures umpiring kind of like pipeline. And from there, it's when I took on and started to do more of outside of that stuff. And then that's where naturally it was Jeannie O'Brien who saw me and found me and said, hey, do you want to tap into like high school and college? You have the game, you know the game. We just need to figure out how to get you to be able to find your angles and the positioning on the field and to call it like an umpire instead of calling it like a player, because those are very drastic differences I learned very quickly. But it was more about the resources. USA Field Hockey is a great resource to find the information to be able to sign up and become an umpire. The NFHCA has courses. And then currently right now, the NCAA offers a great website for a bunch of resources on how to get involved, who to contact, and how to learn and get better at the game as well. So I think it's kind of a lot of different avenues that you can get into it. But really, it's a matter of if you want to stay a part of the game and really make an impact on that side of it, because without umpires, there is no game. So there are no coaches and there are no players. So it's really important to show up, love the game, want to be there for everybody, and really have that passion to still stay around it.
Okay, I'll take on this my perspective of things. How do you get into the profession? So for a college player or someone of college age, I think there are actually quite a few ways that you can get involved. One of the things that we have done we've encouraged our players to start getting involved a little bit more in the last couple of years, especially since I've started umpiring. And this year we had at the NIF, the indoor festival, we had 8 players that were there umpiring. And if all you need to do is tell them, say, hey, you can make some pretty good money on the side, and they'll be interested in it, obviously. But there are different ways to start. One of the things that we did this last weekend at our play days, we had 2 of our players shadow 2 experienced umpires who came in, and they just moved with them and talked with them, and they listened to how they talked to each other. And it was really helpful for them. I think they learned a lot. As Shannon was saying, there's a lot about positioning that you don't think about when you're a player, but when you start to see it from the opposite angle, it teaches you things that actually makes you a much better player. So I think it's really beneficial in that sense. There's opportunities at the showcases, Shooting Star and the US hockey tournaments, where you can make some good money doing it. And I think just there's middle school opportunities, high school opportunities. Sometimes that crosses over with the college season. But for example, there's a middle school season going on right now where the players can make some extra pocket money doing that. And then you build the relationships going on to the next level and find the connections that Gus was talking about earlier on. And yeah, I think it's a really valuable opportunity for people to have. And one of the other things is that as I started getting to know the umpiring community a bit more, interesting personalities, some quite strong personalities. But one of the things is that there are not as many young umpires as we need there to be. And so I've been telling our players as much as possible, get involved. There's opportunities. We need good young umpires in the game. So, and it's a great way to travel, make money, and we need it because you know, the Barb Carrero, for example, that Gus was talking about, she's just retired from one of her positions, and so we need injection of youth into the game.
Thanks, Andrew. Now we're gonna talk about maintaining umpire skill sets. Once you're an umpire, what do you need to do to keep developing and growing? I'll leave that up to Sean and Gus. Thanks, Andrew and Shannon.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for that insight. When it comes to developing your umpiring skill set, there's such a great overlap between umpiring and life in general. So many of the skills that some of the coaches spoke about that you develop when it comes to leadership and problem solving, all of those you experience and you develop as an umpire as well. Surrounding yourself with good people, and it doesn't need to be a lot of people, just knowing that you have mentors out there. They can take different forms. It can be an old coach. It can be somebody used to umpire your games. It can be colleagues of yours from playing days. Just people that you can talk to openly and honestly. Honesty with yourself is really important. Those umpires that think they do a great job every game, and they've never missed a call, those are the umpires that have stagnated, and who are not really serving the game as well as we would like them to. So there's got to be an open-mindedness. It's really important to approach things with that in mind. Different perspectives, putting yourselves in the shoes of both the coaches and the players, and sometimes thinking to yourself, well, why were they upset about that? Or could I have got that wrong? Or what could I have done differently? And thinking critically about things. Having values and standards is also crucially important, of course. The day that you think you know it all as an umpire, you should probably stop umpiring. I've been doing it for 25 years now, and I still learn something every game that I step onto the field. So yeah, those people who get into that sort of mindset and feel like the game's or they're doing the game a favor by being involved, and they're bigger than the game, it's not a good look, and it's not good for your development or progression as an umpire. And until the day you hang your whistle up, I think you are developing. So it's a constant growth, and yeah, it's just really something that it tests you, but in a rewarding way, and knowing that you've got those people in that community around you is extremely rewarding. So it's development and growth from the day you pick up the whistle to the day you hang it up. It's a constant.
Yeah, I look at it, and Sean, and you might back me up on this based on your other career outside of field hockey, but in the boardroom, in big meetings in front of groups of people, one of the things that I learned was that, especially as a strong-minded Mediterranean heritage individual, was that I could always use improvement in communication, and it wasn't a thing of being louder, but being able to listen and understand, and being able to ask and answer questions in a way that was a little more open. I think that was the biggest value I took out of on the field umpiring, from the standpoint of then being able to take it to a boardroom, then being able to take it to a huge meeting in front of an entire group of people. So as you as students get into careers where you're going to be more front facing and owning opportunities for career and company growth, that's one of those things that, especially when you're running around making decisions, your heart rate's at about 150, it's 95 degrees, and you have input of fans and other people telling you your decisions aren't necessarily correct. When you go sit in a boardroom, it's a whole lot easier to make that decision sitting down in a nice calm heart rate with air conditioning on, and being able to have time to actually speak and get things communicated how you want to. And I think that's one of the big takeaways that I took out of umpiring. The other part of it is that there are events that we have in this country, and a lot of you play in a very high stress situation where it's go all the time. There are events that, as you get into umpiring, they're the social tournaments, they're the Chicago Cups, the Atlanta Cups, Dirty Water, which is up in Boston. They are more the social tournaments, so you could stay in the game and have fun with it, and remember that it is a game, and you don't necessarily have to be under pressure all the time. And the things that you learn from those tournaments, exactly, you know, as Sean was saying, you take that into your everyday life tool set, and something happens in those events, and those learning opportunities are invaluable for, you know, either an immediate impact to how you handle and look at life versus, you know, something that's going to be 7, 10, 15 years down the road. So those learning opportunities and enhancement opportunities for your personal development and growth are always presented right in front of you. And it's, you never stop learning. And so that's the part that is one of the greatest takeaways. And I've said this in front of international audiences. I've said it in front of my family. The greatest education I've gotten is running around on a hockey field, and the people that you meet at, whether it's a shooting star, the US festivals, the now Nexuses, those events have been some of the greatest growth experiences to making me who I am now, and I'm forever grateful for it.
Thank you so much, Gus. Thank you to the umpires and our coaches. And then briefly, I know many of our coaches and umpires talked about playing and their playing careers. There are several opportunities still to keep playing once you finish your collegiate and scholastic or club careers. We have an adult league, the United States Field Hockey League, the USFHL, and USA Field Hockey is always a great draw. As you know, Janelle plays for one of the Masters teams. So there are USA Field Hockey over 35, over 45, and over 55 US Masters teams that are available when it comes to continuing playing. I want to thank everyone for being on the panel today. Those of you out there interested in coaching or getting a job, we have a resume bank with the NFHCA where you can put your resume in, which can actually even be pulled by umpires. And then we also have a job posting board with the NFHCA. You can visit for more resources, nfhca.org, member benefits, stay in the game, or go to the nfhca.org website. Thank you again for everyone for attending, and have a good night.